We've had to several times recently, and I'm talking about since the Biden administration came into office, to where when you can't legislate, all of a sudden you use executive orders and rulings. You've heard of the deep state. That's what happens when you can't get your way legislatively, which means you got to get 60 senators corralled here to do it, and you start doing things, in many cases, pushing legal limits administratively. That is when government has gone wild. I want to take you back to about a little over a year and a half ago when COVID was in the rearview mirror. If you remember, there was the effort to try to force vaccinations on every individual in the country working for an employer with 100 employees or more. That would have been almost everyone. It had folks in Indiana that owned businesses wondering, now that this was all in the rearview mirror, why would you do it? It's government gone wild. It was our office that dusted off the Congressional Review Act that said enough is enough. Of course, Speaker of the House Pelosi wasn't going to take it up there. We did pass it in the Senate, and thank goodness the Supreme Court came in about 2 weeks later and said enough is enough. That's unconstitutional. Had to do it another time on all your hard-earned money you put into your investment accounts. You've heard of ESG, environment, social, and governance. That should be of equal value as return on investment. You know it shouldn't be. That's when you're trying to weave in ideology along with investment returns. We had to dust it off again, and that passed in the Senate and the House and generated President Biden's first veto. The number of times we've had to do it since then, too many to count. We're doing it again here this evening. I've led bipartisan letters to the NLRB, National Labor Relations Board, raising concerns about its proposed rule regarding joint employer status over the past couple years, to no avail. And what they're wanting to do again, this is getting into Main Street, into small business, and leverage that executive power to do something that would mess up what's worked well for a long time. This rule replaced the 2020 joint employer rule that focused on direct and immediate control as the criterion, and replaced it with indirect and reserved, which means it's subjective. You can do whatever you want because you don't want that particular rule that would have kept it where it's always been and where it's worked. It's caused confusion for franchise owners for years. It's going to affect franchisees just as bad. Those are the Main Street business owners. It would have immediate and long-term negative effects on millions of workers and thousands of businesses when the economy is already reeling from the inflation and the sugar high economy based upon borrowed money spent to help few parts of it. That's what they've given us, and then they want to do this. Franchisors and franchisees, Main Street America gets impacted by it. Moving forward with this misguided rule, the NLRB would hurt entrepreneurs. That's the backbone of our economy. They're the ones that start things that someday may become a larger business. 32% of small business owners say they would not have a business if it was not for franchising. The NLRB should not move forward with this joint employer rule because it will have a negative economic impact. It's actually inconsistent with common law. The board should maintain the 2020 rule. It wasn't broken, it was working. They seem to be doing everything that tries to fix it when it's not broken. I yield.